in Genesis 50, starting on verse 15. It said, "When Joseph's brethren saw that their father was dead, they said, 'Perhaps Joseph will hate us and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him.' So they sent messengers to Joseph, saying, 'Before your father died, he commanded, saying, Thus you shall say to Joseph, I beg you, please forgive the trespass of your brothers and for their sin, for they did evil to you. Now please forgive the trespass of the servants of God of your father.' And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, 'Behold, we are your servants.' Joseph said to them, 'Do not be afraid, for I am in the place of God. But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive. Now, therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones.' And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them."
Amen. Amen. All right, you may be seated. That was literally the end game with Joseph finally in the end when he had welcomed his brethren. Well, we're going to rehash just a little bit this morning and pick up the story in Genesis 45 and show you one more time how Joseph is a type of Christ, a forerunner, if you will. As a 17-year-old teenager, Joseph had visions that God gave him. And don't be jealous of other people when God gives them a vision for their life, because he has one for you too if you will listen. Yeah, that's right. He was hated by his own brothers for the visions that God gave him. His brothers plotted to kill him over their jealousy. The oldest brother saved his life by suggesting that they fake his death. And upon doing so, they sold him to slave traders and went and told their father that Joseph had been killed. Their dad never got over it, and he grieved for many years. Joseph was soon sold to a captain of the Egyptian guard by the name of Potiphar. Potiphar was so impressed by Joseph's integrity that he put him in charge of his entire household. But all the same time, Potiphar's wife tried to sleep with Joseph, and he outright refused many times. So finally, she tore her clothes and declared that Joseph had attacked her. And he was immediately thrown in prison for something he did not do. While he was in prison, the warden himself was so impressed with Joseph's integrity that he put Joseph in charge of the whole prison. Here was a prisoner running the prison. While he was there, it was discovered that he could interpret dreams by the power of God. While Joseph was still in prison, Pharaoh dreamed 2 dreams that greatly troubled him. And no one could interpret the dreams. If you notice, he called for the magicians and the soothsayers and the astrologers like everybody else did. And they could not interpret the dreams because these dreams were from God, and only God's people can interpret one of those. Joseph's interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams were truthful, and he gave godly wisdom to Pharaoh on how he could literally save the known world from starvation. And so Pharaoh put Joseph in command of the known world, second only to Pharaoh himself. And Joseph's guidance saved everyone from the great famine that was to come. And now we pick up the story when Joseph's brothers show up in Egypt wanting to buy food to keep from starving. They did not recognize Joseph but he did recognize them. So he now starts putting these men to task and to see what they would say and how they would react, to see if they had integrity. And he asked them many questions about their father as if he didn't know anything about it, and found out he had the younger brother. They answered not knowing what was going on. And so on their final trip, he put money and his own silver cup in their sacks, and then had them stopped when they were leaving and brought back before him as if they had stolen this. And here, when they were brought before Joseph, they thought that they would be either killed or enslaved for their theft. They were terrified when they had to stand before Joseph. After all, they had no idea who he was and what he was capable of doing to them. And in Genesis 45, it was really getting to Joseph. He'd been talking to them over and over, and sometimes he had to run out the room to go cry. And so finally, at this last confrontation with them, it says Joseph could not refrain himself before all of them that stood by him. And so he cried out loud, "Cause every man to go out from me. Get out of the room, everybody but his brothers." And there stood no man with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. Oh, I'd love to have been a fly on the wall and watched that. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard it. And no doubt they were wondering, why is the great Joseph, who we named Zaphnath-Paaneah, the Savior of the world, why is he crying in front of these Hebrews that came to buy corn from him? And Joseph said to his brethren, "I am Joseph. Does my father yet live?" And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. That's an understatement. All this time they thought they would never see this man again, whom they had sold into slavery and faked his death, and because they had hated him. And now they've come back to buy corn in Egypt to keep from starving, and now they find that the brother that they hated is in charge. All Joseph could think about was his father. What a befitting story on Father's Day. His father, who he loved so much and no doubt missed so badly. And that was the first thing he asked about. All those many years, he yet longed to see his father. Can you imagine, though, the brothers, when they heard him say, "I am Joseph"? No doubt they couldn't answer him. Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, I pray you." And they came near, and he said again to them, "I am Joseph, your brother, who you sold into Egypt. Now therefore," listen to this, tell me this isn't the godliest thing you've ever heard. "Therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that you sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life." Somebody gets the big picture. He says, "For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in which there will neither be earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you, a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance." As I said, Joseph got the big picture. And that is the problem that so many Christians today have, is we don't get the big picture, and we just fall to pieces when every little thing comes along and we don't know how to deal with it. And we act as if God is not in charge and that God is not paying attention to what's going on, and we scramble to figure out how to work this out right and how to do this. The bad thing about what most of us do quite often is we look at our circumstances and do not understand God's big picture, and so we react wrongly. He told them again, he said, so now it was not you that sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh, the Lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. That was the big picture. God was planning that all along. People, please understand that the circumstances in your life are no surprise to God whatsoever. He'll never look down at you and go, oh, I didn't see that coming. He knows everything that's coming. We don't, but he does, and we've got to trust him, as scary as it may be at times, because he has a plan for all of that. And understand that everything that happens in a Christian's life is all about God and his work, which is redemption with none other than through Jesus Christ. That's why we are here. We are his ambassadors to spread the gospel, and he will bring events along in our life to steer us in the right direction. But we've got to step back and say, God, I don't understand it, but show me the big picture. And he will, eventually. So Joseph tells his brethren, hurry and go to my father and say to him, thus saith your son Joseph, God has made me Lord over all of Egypt. Come down to me and tarry not. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen. And you shall be near unto me, you and your children and your children's children and your flocks and your herds and all that you have. And there I will nourish you. For yet there are 5 years of famine, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty. God was going to make sure that the tribes of Israel, the sons of Jacob, were going to survive no matter what the devil tried to do, because it was prophesied that Jesus was going to come from that line. Oh, the devil tried everything throughout the centuries when it was prophesied that Jesus would come as a descendant of Abraham, and he tried everything, and here was another one trying to starve them out. But God sends people ahead to fix things and get things ready. When God has a will, it's going to get done. Make no mistake about it, God will have his way, one way or another. It's up to us whether we want to be part of that or not. And so he told him, hurry and go to my father. Again, Joseph's main concern is the welfare of his father and his family. Did you notice the one thing or the several different things that were not evident with Joseph? Obviously, he was not Irish, he was Hebrew. No revenge. And he had them right in the palm of his hand. Let me tell you something, folks. There will be a time when you may have your very enemies in the palm of your hand, and your integrity will show what you're going to do with them. Your godliness and your righteousness will show then when you have that opportunity. There was no revenge. There was no spite. There was no anger or railing out. And he had a reason to do all of that because of what they did to him, but he refused to do it. He said this, just go get my father and all of your family and children and your livestock. Get everything you got, and I will take care of you, and you will dwell in the land of Goshen. Wow. And he told him, behold, because they were still floored. They still couldn't speak. He said, behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it's my mouth that's speaking to you. And you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, of all that you have seen, and you'll hurry and bring down my father here. Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brethren and wept upon them. And after that, his brethren talked with him. They finally got some words together that they could say. They were so stunned. They were terrified. They were shocked. They could not believe how God worked in this man's life. And people will be shocked at what God does with your life if you'll let him do it. It appears, as I said, that his brothers were so shaken that it took a long time before they could even talk to him. They must, and the thing that floored them, no doubt, was Joseph's mercy, grace, and forgiveness. That is a type of Christ. There is no one sitting in this room today, including the man behind this pulpit, that deserves one single thing from God but judgment. That is all we really deserve, is the judgment of God. And I am still floored at Jesus' mercy and his grace and forgiveness. That's where the word amazing grace came from, because it is amazing. It was amazing when I got saved. It's been amazing all my life, and this morning I find his grace amazing again. In verse 16 it says, the fame went there, and the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house. He found out what was going on, saying, Joseph's brethren are come, and it pleased Pharaoh well, and his servants. And now Pharaoh is going to step up to the plate. And he said to Joseph, say unto your brethren, do this. Load up your beasts, or load up your animals, and go and get back into the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households, and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land. He loved Joseph so much for what Joseph had done for him. Now he is going to do the same for Joseph's family. And he told Joseph, you are commanded, this do ye, take you the wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and your wives, and bring your father and come. What a wonderful invitation. And then he told them this, and this is a timely message: regard not your stuff or your things. I like the old English. They refer to it as your stuff. We do that too. I got all this stuff. He said, don't worry about your stuff, for the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. How about that? You don't have to worry about bringing anything. Pharaoh gave Joseph all of the riches and honor and glory of Egypt to share with his father and his brethren and his descendants. And he told them not to bring their old stuff, just come and enjoy the good of the land of Egypt. You know, heaven will be like that. Jim was talking this morning about, he said, I'm in no hurry to get in the ground, but I'm looking forward to the day when I get a new body. Anybody lay in the bed last night and sit there thinking, I sure would like a new body? Anybody over 40, if you don't raise your hand, you're lying. Definitely if you're over 60, you're lying. Heaven will be like that. We don't have to bother with none of the old stuff anymore when we go up there. There won't be any sickness or pain or sorrow or disease or poverty or any kind of anything. I mean, the Lord will look at you every day and say, I'm sorry, but I don't have any bad news to report today. And I want tomorrow, and I want a million years from now. We won't have to bother with our old stuff. And the children of Israel did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and he gave them provision for the way, to take care of them while they traveled. And to all of them he gave each man a change of clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of clothing. And to his father he sent after this manner 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she-donkeys laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed. And he said to them, see not that ye fall not out by the way. Now here's what Pharaoh did. By order of Pharaoh, Joseph sent a huge provision. Listen carefully. This hits home. He sent a huge provision for the journey to go fetch his father, so that no one would have any need on their journey to Goshen. Did you get that? This is how our Heavenly Father treats us. We are on a journey right now. Every morning when I look at the latest thing that's going on in this country and in this world, I think, thank God this is not our home. This is a temporary place that we're going to be for a while, and we're going to Goshen. We're going to Canaan. There's a bunch of different names for heaven that people use, but most of all, we call it home. And that's where we are going. Now listen, while you are on the journey that you are taking, and everyone has a time when their journey's going to be over, if the Lord doesn't come and bring the whole church out soon, we will have everything we need while we are on our journey through this world. Any of y'all ever been surprised lately how God looked out for you in the middle of a big mess and provided for you when there was no other way possible? That's how He works. And God will do whatever He has to do to take care of you on your journey. And it may be tough and it may be rough, but He is going to provide while you're on your way through this earth. I'm not a health and wealth preacher, because if I was a health and wealth preacher, I would be looked upon as the most faithless man that was headed straight for hell. God is not, and these people that tell you that God wants you to be wealthy and He wants you to be whole all the time, just send me $19.95. They're after your money. They're not here to tell you the truth. It is going to be tough. And there will be mornings that you will sit up on the side of the bed and go, I just don't feel like doing it. Maybe you've spent a sleepless night worrying over a problem or over an ache or a pain or whatever. That's not what He's talking about. What I'm saying is He will come through for you every time and make a way for you every time to be able to make your journey until you leave here. It won't always be easy, but He will always provide. All right, it says, as they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father, and they told him, Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. That was too good to be true. And sometimes God will bless us in such a way, when you hear it, you'll go, I just can't believe that. How in the world can that be, that God has done this for me or done that for me? And you'll be shocked. And then they told him all the words that Joseph had said. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. That must be my granddaughter back there howling. And Jacob, or Israel, those names were interchangeable, he said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die. People, I'm here to tell you today that the Son is still alive. The Son of God is still alive. And He wants to share with you all of the riches and glory of heaven. Just like Jacob. I know many of you find that hard to believe. But look at the wagons with your spiritual eyes that are full of the miracles and blessing that Jesus has already sent you. And I would say, having said that, rejoice and prepare to see Him. Forgiveness, grace, mercy, and reconciliation is waiting for each and every one of you right here and right now. You don't have to worry about getting yourself straight before God will receive you. You let God receive you as you are now, and He'll fix the getting straight part. He will do that. You come just as you are, with your baggage, with your hurts, with your doubts, with your sin, with your problems, and all the things that's setting you back. And let Him take care of that today. He wants to share with you the same way that Joseph wanted to share with his brothers, although they did not deserve it, and although we did not either. So having said that, I'm going to ask if everyone would stand. And if you have a need from the Lord today, if you need to be saved, please come and talk to one of these prayer warriors. If you need to rededicate your life, if you need to just come and say, I am going to trust you on this journey, or whatever it is on your heart, while Candy plays the song of invitation, we've got folks waiting to receive you. If you need somebody to pray with you, just come and take them by the hand. But no matter what, whatever's on your heart, just come around this altar, because this is where a lot of wonderful decisions get made.